10 player props for the 2021 NFL season that you should be taking, and you got to act pretty quick because these are going to change and things are going to impact them. Let's get into it right now. Ladies, gentlemen, fellas, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate if you want to hit the like button. It helps the channel out a good amount. And what we're going to do here is break down 10 player props right now for the entire season. Rushing yards, one quarterback passing yard prop, and receiving yards for tight ends, receivers, running backs, whatever it might be. 10 total that I have so far. I'll probably end up adding more. If you're in the Discord, we can chat about it there. But these are the 10 that I've looked at over the past week to 2 weeks, and I think we have the biggest edge on. Some of them are just because I like the overs or unders on a player, and I have a better read on them on my projections right now. And then other reasons are because there's a lot of risk baked into some of these over-unders. Does a player stay healthy for the entire season? Does a team bring in another running back to pull away from yards and touches, and then drawing towards the under on some of these players? And a couple of those guys, I think that might be the case. So again, this is not going to be lasting long, these exact props. Once the season starts, they'll be off the board, and as we get closer to the preseason, things will change as we get more news. So take advantage of this as soon as you're watching this video, whenever that might be. I'm going to be using Prize Picks for these props. It's over-unders. It's as simple as that. If you want to use Prize Picks, it's down below, and you'll get a first free bet up to $100 if you use the code SAL. Simple. My name, SAL. There's also a link in the description below. I've used Prize Picks for over a year now. We use them all of NBA. Very legitimate site and a very user-friendly site. So let's start it off with our first player, and that guy's name is going to be Daryl Henderson. And Daryl Henderson right now, if we want to jump up in an over on Prize Picks, he has an over-under of 1,005 rushing yards. Cam Akers is injured. Daryl Henderson is the only guy of meaning on this depth chart as of this recording. But that's as of this recording, correct, right? Xavier Jones, Jake Funk on the depth chart, Raymond Calais, probably not going to impact too much. But here's the thing with Daryl Henderson. Daryl Henderson has had 177 career carries and has never been an NFL RB1. In college, he was great, averaging like 9 yards per clip. But even last year when Cam Akers was hurt, Malcolm Brown was getting half the touches to more than half of the touches in some of those games. He's never been an RB1. So to project him now for around 250 touches, which is what he's going to need to break over 1,000 yards, 230 to 250, to project him for that on the ground alone is steep. It being an extra game in 17-game season is good to see, but still, that is steep. The other thing, just like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year, they secured their running back right before the season started, a week to 2 weeks before the season started, in Leonard Fournette. Why? Because he was cut. Once NFL cuts happen in the preseason and towards the end of the preseason, somebody is going to get picked up by the Rams. Now, is that a good running back? Is it a trade for Marlon Mack, a trade for Melvin Gordon? Some people have floated out there. Is it just picking up Duke Johnson and is picking up a running back in Royce Freeman who maybe gets cut by the Denver Broncos? I think something is going to happen there, and that's going to easily pull away 100 rushes or so from Henderson. Instead of seeing 230 to 250, he sees 150. So I'm taking the under here on the 1,000 yards. I have Daryl Henderson right now for around 930 rushing yards this season, and that's only going to drop if somebody of meaning gets added. There's also some concerns about his durability. So the first player, Daryl Henderson, under 1,005 rushing yards. The second player is also a running back who lacks competition in his backfield. He is on a new team, the Atlanta Falcons, and that is Mike Davis. Mike Davis's over-under rushing yards are set at 805. I currently have the under of 805, and let me tell you why. As of right now, there's no threat for Mike Davis, but very similar, and the biggest threat might be 180-pound running back, undrafted free agent Davion Hawkins, and very similar to Daryl Henderson, I think somebody's going to get added here later in the preseason along those lines, or at least there's a chance for that to happen. Also, we've never seen Mike Davis, very similar to Daryl Henderson, as the lead back. Yes, he was with Carolina last year. Even then, only saw 160 carries on the ground, was primarily fantasy relevant because of his role in the receiving game. Last season with Carolina, he averaged less than 4 yards a carry, and in his NFL career, he's only averaged 3.7 yards per carry. So he's an average to below average running back at best. If he's going to have over 800 rushing yards on his career average of 3.7 yards per carry, he's going to have over 200 rushes on the ground. First of all, I don't really trust the Atlanta offensive line. I don't know if they're going to be looking to run that much, especially with one running back, and Mike Davis in his own right has some durability issues. Right now, Pro Football Focus projects the 2021 Atlanta offensive line to be 24th overall and around 25th in run blocking. So not a great offensive line, a chance of another running back coming in, more so a pass-catching threat for fantasy upside, and not a good running back on the ground, 3.7 yards per carry. Mike Davis under 805 rushing yards. Now, it's not all going to be unders, and this next one will be an over, but it's just easier to take unders. Normally, people only take overs, so the books are going to inflate some of those props, knowing that if everybody's going to take the overs, well, they can get a little bit extra yards in there, and people are still going to take the overs. And also unders, usually you'll hit on most books for if an injury happens, or if somebody breaks out as a rookie and takes carries away or targets away from a running back or wide receiver, right? So you always have that baked in edges on the unders. Usually it goes into your favor. So we'll lean unders the far majority of the time. But this next player that we currently have our first over on is going to be Ezekiel Elliott. You know him. 1,105 rushing yards. So 1,105 rushing yards. I'm actually taking the over here. If you've been watching a lot of my fantasy videos so far, and if you haven't, check them out. You know I like Ezekiel Elliott a lot this year. I have Ezekiel Elliott projected for over 1,200 yards this year. I'm expecting close to 300 carries. We now have that extra game, a 17-game season, so 300 carries isn't what it once used to be. It's not as extensive to get there because you have the extra game, but he's walking into a much healthier offensive line that projects out to be a top 10 offensive line after being bottom 5 last year with all the injuries, and obviously Dak Prescott is returning. I expect this team to play fast pace, to be used often. Ezekiel Elliott over 1,200 rushing yards right now with that extra game is where I have him at, or over 1,100 rushing yards is where I have him at. I have him projected for 1,200. The number 4 player, we're taking another running backs over, and that man is going to be a rookie, and that rookie is going to be the first rookie taken at the running back position this year by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris, over 990.5 total rushing yards. They just came out and said we want him to be a 3-down back. Well, obviously, if you're taking him in the first round, you probably want him to be a 3-down back. Now, the big concerns for Najee Harris are that he arguably has, right there with the New York Giants, coming into this year on paper, the worst offensive line in the NFL. So that's not great. But if he's going to be a 3-down back, if they spent the first round draft capital, and they've already been stating now for a year to 2 years that they want to be a run-first team, even though that has not been the case, an older big Ben Roethlisberger as well, you likely see a ton of touches for Najee Harris. So even if he's not totally efficient with them, the amount of touches that he's having can get you there alone. So if he ends up seeing a 300-touch season, which I'm expecting close to a 300-touch season for him, it makes it very easy for him to go over the 1,000-yard mark. I mean, just average a little bit over 3 yards per carry, and you're getting us there at that point. Right now, I'm projecting Najee Harris for about 1,100 rushing yards, give or take a few, and about 280 attempts. So at that point, I'm not even projecting him to be efficient. I'm taking into account all those factors that are not in his favor and projecting him for under 4 yards per carry. But even then, we'll take the over 990.5 rushing yards. Now, the 5th player is going to be a running back that we're taking his under rushing yards. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that this is a do not draft running back because another rookie, first round running back, Travis Etienne, was drafted into this backfield. And I have a lot of upside and expectations for Etienne and not so much for the undrafted free agent that was good last year, finished as a top 10 running back in fantasy football because he just lucked into his situation in James Robinson. 670.5 rushing yards. We are taking the under, and we are hammering the under on this one. Leonard Fournette gets cut. Roquan Armstrong gets COVID and is out for the year. Devine Ezekiel gets hurt. All 3 of those things had to happen for James Robinson to just have a role last year. And he was fine. I admit it. He was fine on the volume that he had. But he wasn't mega efficient. There's no investment in him now. They just drafted a first-round running back who played with the number 1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, in college. I'm not expecting much opportunities here. I'm expecting an RB1 season out of Etienne. I'm expecting only at this point an under 125 attempts for Robinson. I have Robinson barely hitting 500 rushing yards. This is a major one right now. This is a major under. Even if I'm wrong by a good amount and he hits 600, we're still getting the under by 75 yards. Under Robinson right now, 670.5 yards. This next one is not going to be on the board for long. It's a quarterback who I'm taking the under, and we're hammering the under because of the recent news that came out. I'm surprised it's still on the board at this point. I assume Prize Picks thinks that Jameis Winston and some other books is going to be the starter for the season, which I'm not expecting now. With the Michael Thomas injury, I expect Jameis Winston to not be starting and playing in as many games, and this team to go as run-heavy as they ever have in New Orleans. The under 3,750 passing yards for Jameis Winston is where I am at right now. No Michael Thomas for at least 50% of the season, it seems. It might not be 100% for 75 to 100% of the season. I believe leans more towards Taysom Hill and adding a little bit of versatility. When your best wide receivers are Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, Little Jordan Humphrey, Deontay Harris, special teams players for the most part, and 2 to 3 out of 4 of those guys, it doesn't help Jameis Winston all that much, and it doesn't give you any type of versatility as he's not as mobile or anywhere near as mobile as Taysom Hill. So it doesn't mean Taysom Hill is going to start all 17 games, but it means there's much more likely of a chance that Taysom Hill plays more if Jameis is starting some of those games, or Taysom Hill just starts more games than he was going to before this Michael Thomas injury for 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. But even if Jameis Winston does start a lot of games this year, the weapons that he has does not allow him to get there. So right now we're taking the under on that one. I have Jameis Winston at this point for under 2,500 passing yards, as I expect Taysom to now start more games due to the Michael Thomas injury. As we get into the final 4 and a couple of receivers in here, and the rest I believe are going to be receivers, I just want to remind you that Prize Picks is the sponsor of this program, and that's who we're using for some of these props. I'd encourage you to check it out down below. Even if you're in a state where it might not be legal, New York, Florida, some other states, you can actually play Prize Picks there because it's considered fantasy sports. So you can check it out down below. If you use the code SAL and that link, you will get a free bet up to $100 that is down below thanks to Prize Picks. So check it out. get some of these props in while you can and while they last. So although we're leaning majority unders and the sign behind me says take the over, so the irony there are still some overs like we said, and that's another one right now. And that player at the wide receiver position, second-year player, CeeDee Lamb, on an offense where we already took one over with Ezekiel Elliott. We like the Cowboys offense a lot this year. 1,055 receiving yards. I'm taking the over on the second-year player, CeeDee Lamb. It's just very simple right now. Dak Prescott is healthy. There's an extra game into the season. He looked elite last year when Dak Prescott played for the month of the season, had over a 100-yard game, was getting absolutely everything he wanted out of the slot. This is arguably the most talented receiver on the team, and that's with Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup on the team. Coming out of the slot where you have the most upside, you could use more parts of the field. You usually have a worse cornerback on you, and Dak Prescott took advantage of that last year. I right now have CeeDee Lamb for over 1,100 yards. I have him for about 60 to 70 yards over this number. I'm getting a lot of slot usage out of CeeDee Lamb this year, and Dak Prescott back. We take the over, wheels up for the Cowboys offense in 2021. Another receiver that we have the over on that I have a video coming out on in a couple of weeks, so be sure, like a week or two, be sure to check out those videos as well, season-long videos. We're going to be covering the preseason from a betting standpoint, from a prop standpoint, and from a daily fantasy sports standpoint. Everything that you can think about for football, season-long videos are already out and more coming, so be sure to subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. But this next player right now is a wide receiver who has a new quarterback, and that man's name is going to be Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, 1,005 receiving yards. Will Cooper Kupp have a 1,000-yard season with that extra game, 17 games now, this season? I am taking the over 1,005 yards. I enjoy the fact that he has Matthew Stafford there now. And let me tell you some other reasons why. You get Stafford added, who in his career allows for more catchable targets than Jared Goff by about 4 to 5%. That is good. He's going to just see more downfield accuracy and more pocket presence and awareness and ability to extend plays than Jared Goff ever did, instead of just throwing the ball away at people's feet or throwing interceptions. I have him projected right now, and I'm surprised that this is only 1,500, for over 1,100 yards. A lot of targets coming Cooper Kupp's way, who in 16 game seasons has seen 125 plus targets in back-to-back years now. And in one of those seasons, he missed a couple of games. So now I have him projecting out for over 130 targets, and he's a yards after the catch monster. He has finished top 4 in yards after the catch in each of the past 2 seasons. So more targets, better quarterback and more accurate quarterback play, and a guy who can play run after the catch for more yardage, which is what we're taking the prop on here, with an extra game. Wheels up for Cooper Kupp, over 1,005 receiving yards. We have the over there as our 8th prop. We'll finish up with 2 unders on wide receivers. If you could smack the like button, I appreciate that. The first one is going to be in Minnesota, and that man is Adam Thielen, who we've already released a fantasy-related video on. Check that one out, quick 10-minute video or so. I'm taking right now, and we can pull it up the exact total, the under 990.5 receiving yards. So last year, Thielen played 15 to 16 games, only had about 925. So it was right around on pace to hit this number, and now there's an extra game. So Sal, why are you not taking it? Well, last year he had a decent yards per reception number, but the targets continued to drop for Adam Thielen on a per game basis, and now obviously Justin Jefferson is there this year. They just added Dede Westbrook, maybe makes the team. They added Amir Smith-Marset in the draft. Irv Smith should take a bigger step forward than Kyle Rudolph gave them last year, and also Tyler Conklin to that extent at tight end. So this is a team now with a 31-year-old wide receiver in Adam Thielen, who relies heavily on touchdowns, and that's what kept him fantasy relevant last year at 14 touchdowns, not even hitting 950 or 1,000 receiving yards. So I'm taking the under here because he's another year older. He's going to be over 31 years old by the time the season starts and by the midway point of the year, which is usually the fall-off age for most wide receivers, and his targets are just dropping right now. He's also in a run-first offense where, if anything, I think you see less efficiency from Kirk Cousins, just on a regression standpoint, and this entire passing game, and more overall usage for Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. So Adam Thielen, the age, the lower efficiency in the offense, and the lower overall volume is leading me to take the under 990.5 receiving yards as our 9th prop. Now, the final player that I'm taking the under on is a wide receiver, and his name is, from San Francisco 49ers, Deebo Samuel. The over-under total is set right now at 895.5 receiving yards. So can he go for 896 yards? I say no. I take the under on that one. For the most part, Deebo Samuel relies solely on yak. He finished outside the top 100 on average depth of target. His average depth of target was on par with a lot of running backs, meaning that most of his targets came at, slightly behind, or slightly in front by a yard or two the line of scrimmage, meaning that he solely relied on those yards after the catch, which he was quality at, but it means that it makes it harder to have those big chunk plays. He's rarely going to have a 30-yard pass downfield that he's going to catch and maybe break for a touchdown. He's going to do a lot of his work at the line of scrimmage, which if he can get peppered with targets is good. I just don't think that that's going to happen. Why don't I think that? Because he's the 3rd passing option in a run-first offense, maybe one of the top 2 or 3 most heavy run-first offenses under Kyle Shanahan's running scheme. George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, the second-year player, are ahead of him right now in the passing game. So I don't want to be betting on the over on the third passing option in a run-first offense. The other thing to point out is and they're paying Jimmy Garoppolo a lot of money, $25 million this year, so I expect Lance to not start right away and maybe not for the first month or 2 of the season even play, but when Trey Lance, and if he plays this year, when you are going to see less screen plays. You're going to see more running plays from the quarterback than with Jimmy Garoppolo, which just takes away even more targets and potential overall yards from Deebo Samuel. So we'll take the under 895.5 receiving yards for Deebo Samuel in 2021. So those are 10 props, and you can see them all and tail them or use whichever ones you want to down below over on Prize Picks. Again, that code SAL gets you that lovely free bet up to $100. And you can go from there. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. If you're in the Discord and you have Discord access because you are a lovely Patreon member. If you have any other questions on specific props or any others that I'll be taking as the preseason goes on, just reach out and ask me. Thank you for tuning into this video. I'll see you all in the next one. Be sure to roam around the channel and check out the other betting and DFS and prop videos that we will be posting and have already posted for 2021 football season. Peace out, gang.